RealReal dropped their 2023 resale report, and the findings are rather interesting. Now, if this is ringing a bell to you, it's probably because I did a video about Vestiere Collective's impact report, and that sort of covered their top performing brands and also the items that have the most sales on their platform. Now, Vestiere Collective is Europe's biggest resale website, but the RealReal is one of the biggest in the US, right? I actually couldn't find out which resale platform is the biggest in the US, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the RealReal. Either way, the data for the RealReal's report is very US centric. So I thought that it would be interesting, because we're going to go through the report, to sort of where we can compare to the data that we have from Vestiere Collective to see if there's any differences between Europe and the US. Now, the RealReal's resale report, that's terrible in the mouth. Basically, is mainly focused on searches. There are some sort of figures around sales, but because it's based around searches, these are the products that people are most interested in, or the products that people want. Hence, I have sort of said in the title that this is what's on people's wish list. I will have both of the reports linked below. Guys, if you are new here, my name is Cassie and I'm a self-diagnosed luxury addict. I put out videos on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, so if you like luxury fashion, then you're going to love it here. So head on there, subscribe, turn on the bell, become a member of our luxury addicted family. When are we going to rehab? Never. Also, I now have a podcast, so that will be linked below. Okay, the first part of the report that I want to go to is they've basically done this map of the US, and they've highlighted specific cities and the pieces and brands that are most searched for in those cities. Some of them sort of won't surprise you. For example, Seattle, known to be sort of weather similar to the UK. They are the biggest city for searching knitwear. Houston is all about party dresses. Love that for Houston, shout out to H-Town. Then you've got Miami, day dresses. Once again, makes sense. It's warm there all of the time. They want a nice flowy dress, get the air going. San Francisco is the highest searches for stud earrings. Interesting. Brooklyn, skirts. Random, would never have guessed. There are a couple that I want to drill down a little bit deeper on. So the first one is LA, which turns out is the biggest city for selling within the ages of 11 to 26. So Gen Z are consigning in LA, right? The top brands here are Gucci, Saint Laurent and Fendi. Dallas is the city with the highest order values. The Dallas girls are spending. So it's no surprise that the top brands there are the like tippity top, right? Chanel, Hermes and Tiffany. Now Tiffany is a brand that was not featured on Vestiere's report. Does this maybe mean that Tiffany, then again, they didn't really feature, apart from Cartier, they didn't really feature any jewellery brands or any jewellery information. I'm going to get to that. Does this mean that Tiffany has a stronger hold in the US than it does in Europe? I don't know, something to think about. Washington, DC, fine jewellery focus. They are interested in bangles. The biggest brands here, Hermes, Tiffany, Cartier. Unsurprising, because within the world of bangles, the Click H bracelet of Hermes, also mentioned in Vestiere Collective's report. Cartier, you've got the Love bracelet, you've got the Juste Clou, which we know that you can get really good deals pre-loved if you do decide to go that route. Manhattan are interested in watches. Rolex, Patek, Cartier. Now, what I found interesting is that if you look at Vestiere Collective as a platform, they don't really focus very much on fine jewellery and watches. It's not the thing that they sort of shout the most about. Whereas the RealReal definitely sort of shouts a bit more about the fact that they do sell fine jewellery. And it doesn't even have to be branded, right? It just has to be like diamonds and gold. It just has to be fine. They do also take like designer costume jewellery, but I was just mainly having a focus on fine and watches for this sort of section. So that's something that maybe the RealReal has a bit more strategy behind or sings about more. Even if you go into a RealReal shop, they have a jewellery case with watches and fine jewellery and whatever. So I find it interesting that that's not something that Vestiere Collective highlights that much. Maybe there are other competitors in Europe. Maybe it's something that, I don't know, buying pre-loved watches and fine jewellery in Europe, people go to other places. Unclear, but I found that a little bit interesting. Chicago, Again, unsurprising, outerwear. They search the most for outerwear, and their top brand is the top performing designer brand, according to Vestiere, which is Moncler, followed by Canada Goose, not surprising, and Burberry. Now, I'm going to, just to make things easier, I'm just going to generalise and say that the Vestiere report is Europe and the Real report is the US. We know that this isn't the nitty-gritty, this isn't definitive, this is just to make it easy to compare. We're not doing apples to apples, this is an apple and a banana. But generally, I think it's quite interesting to do a bit of a deep dive. However, across the whole of the US, the top searched item is the Chanel Classic Flap. This is unsurprising, especially on the back of more price increases. Apparently there's one due in September. I know. People are turning more and more to the resale market for Chanel Classic Flaps. You can get them in great condition for much less than going to the shop. A medium-sized classic flap is $10,000. I know, unfathomable, but this is where we've come to. Then we move into a section of the report which is the most searched brands in general across the site, across all age ranges and regions and whatever. And it's pretty consistent with the top performing luxury brands on Vestiere / in Europe, right? Except that the top three are exactly the same except they're in different orders. So for the US, Gucci is number one. And people always tend to be a bit surprised by how well Gucci performs in general, but I think when you think about it, it makes sense. Gucci has a wide range of options for a wide range of people across a lot of different price points. And I think that that is where they thrive. Now, especially for the resale market, people are interested in nostalgia, vintage pieces. Gucci are also bringing back Tom Ford era 2004 horse bit clutch. That's going to have an influx of more people looking to resale. Tom Ford era Gucci in general, I think people are really sort of interested in searching and stuff like that. So that sort of, props them up in first place. In second place in the US you have Louis Vuitton, and in third you have Chanel. Now in Europe you have Chanel, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. Interesting. The rest of the brands in the top 10 are the same. So you have Prada, Dior, Hermes, Saint Laurent, Fendi, Celine, but there's one difference. In Europe, they have Balenciaga, and in the US, Bottega. According to the Real Reels report, Bottega sort of moving into the top 10 is a part of the whole sort of quiet luxury trend and stuff like that. Same thing with Celine getting in there as well. Now let's talk investment bags. I'm going to touch on it because I tend to do like an annual investment bags video, right? Purely based on the ROI, the return of investment of buying these bags and then putting them straight onto the resale market, I'm going to go through the top 4. So at the top, unsurprising, Hermes Birkin. With the percentage being that you will probably get 127% back when you sell that bag, okay? So almost 30% above retail. Then, surprising, the Chanel 22 with 104%, just above, so you're making your money back. This obviously does not include the fees of the sites, keep that in mind. But the Chanel 22, look, maybe it's just because I'm biased and I've slandered this bag from the beginning of its existence. Fair enough, the small versions are cute, still not enough for me to give you my money. I didn't really sort of realise the popularity of the bag, and, props to them, it seems to be doing well for them. I have seen it on some people and been like, actually you're kind of rocking it. Do I like it? No, I'm going to stand fast on the fact that I'm not a Chanel 22 girl, but it's performing well on the resale market. Then you've got the Goyard Mini Anjou. This is the little tote. It is very cute. I have thought numerous times about purchasing it myself. But I have the Elia Mina. I'm happy with it. It serves the same purpose. You're going to get pretty much what you bought it for. And this is not that surprising either because Goyard is not available online. Okay? So you have that little bit of, maybe there are certain areas that also don't have a Goyard store. There's not as many of them as something like a Chanel, where they don't sell online, but there's a load of stores in the majority of the major cities, right? Really, when it comes to Goyard, I think Goyard only has 3 shops in the US, right? For an example. They only have like 2 in the UK. 1 even, possibly? Unclear. I am a liar. They have 6 stores in the US, and they only have 1 in the UK. But it's not easy to get your hands on in general, so I'm not surprised that it does well on the resale market. You know, decently well. Obviously, the Mini Anjou is a style that people are going after, fair enough. And the last one I wanted to talk about is the Saint Laurent Eclair tote, going for 93%. So you're losing a little bit of money on it. This one surprised me because Saint Laurent generally doesn't perform too well on resale, but it seems as though that particular style did. Across all regions and all age ranges for the real, so for the US market, and in terms of actual purchases, these are sales, these are the most popular bags sold on the site. The Chanel Classic Flap, we've been through it, we know. The Louis Vuitton Speedy, which I think if it's performing well now, it's going to perform even better from now onwards, with the fact that it's a huge part of Louis Vuitton men's. We're going to be seeing it out and about more and more. I'm not surprised that people are interested in going resale, maybe finding those sort of old collaborations that you once loved, or just like vintage, a bit more worn in versions, other than buying new. Again, Louis Vuitton does their price increases, blah, blah, blah. And finally, the Louis Vuitton monogram Keepall. Maybe this sort of like goes in with the Speedy thing. Look, Keepalls are always going to be popular. They're a great sort of easy duffel bag. They wear well. Makes sense. Now, this last sort of section of the Real Reels report, there's nothing really else to compare with Europe, but they sort of went through brands that are gaining a bit of traction and why on the site. So I thought we'd go through that. Valentino, sales of Valentino PP Pink. I thought we were over it. Apparently not. Due to the interest in Barbie and Barbiecore and the Barbie film, sales for Valentino PP Pink are up 264%. Shocking, I know. Loro Piana, quite luxury trend and all of that. Searches for the brand are up 36%, even more sort of spurred on by the fact that Kendall Roy of Succession wore the Loro Piana hats throughout the series and all of that business. Miu Miu searches have gone up 22% in the last year. And again, Miu Miu is a brand that has been really enjoying their time in the limelight as of late. And with their ballet flats being super popular as well, that doesn't really surprise me. Also because their ready-to-wear is so expensive. It is pretty much on par with Prada, even though it's meant to be, you know, the sister brand. Everybody sort of, you know, expected it to be cheaper, but again, I don't make the rules. Maybe also people are turning to the pre-love market to get their Miu Miu for a more approachable, reasonable price point. The next one is a bit of an interesting brand that they've included. So they've included St. John. And apparently they have a partnership with stylist Carla Welch, which is sort of reinvigorating it a bit, making it a bit younger. And apparently searches for their sort of classic suits has gone up 32%. It gives you that Chanel vibe without the Chanel price tag. St. John is a brand that I really don't see much of outside of the US. I couldn't tell you if it's stocked in like a Selfridges or a Harrods in the UK. I don't really sort of see it. So it's interesting that that's been included because apparently people are enjoying it. And finally, for this little section, Loewe searches are up 59%. Are you surprised? Hottest brand of the year, ring-a-ding-ding. Expect it to probably go up a little bit more after the sad news regarding the puzzle bag. What shocked you the most, comparing between the two? I think it's sort of interesting that things are in line, but there are a few sort of surprising outliers. I thought it was an interesting little deep dive anyway. I'm going to leave a link to another video over here in case you haven't already seen it. Have an amazing morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are, and in the words of my father.
If you've enjoyed it, tell your friends. If you haven't, keep your mouth shut.
I will see you in my next video. Mwah. Bye, guys.